Look, this how committed I am. We're gonna start. We're gonna start here. That's how committed I am. We're gonna start here. Ellis here. We do? Oh, 927. They some good shoes. They are. They are. Give us. Let me get some of those, Ellis. Let me get some of these. You ain't got but so many people over there. Yeah, here. Yeah, I got it, man. But not just pass these back and bring the extras back. Oh, hold on, let me get one. Hold on, give me one of those. I might want one. Why does it say thoughts? I must have been rushing. Oh, let me tell you, because the title says souls of black thoughts, and I didn't pay attention to do a thing. Let me tell you how that's actually a good example of what happens when you're multitasking. Because I'm doing these notes, and I'm also looking at a folder that Joyce had given me of my thoughts from Pastor Mike for the Amsterdam News. So I'm looking at thoughts from Pastor Mike and souls of black folk, and I put souls of black thoughts. And I didn't even catch it. That's funny. I didn't even catch it. So, please put folks there, please, and just, I am human. But that doesn't happen. It happens to me a lot when you trying to do too much at one time and you start cross stuff. Yeah, so please, that's supposed to be folks. Don't show nobody your notes. They think a pastor playing around, okay? Trying to embarrass me. And don't be trying to read them too. Y'all so fast. Wanda, what you doing? That don't mean read it. Correct the word. Correct the word. You ain't got to read. That take 2 seconds. And it's going to take you longer if you're busy talking to me. Mama say, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Yeah. Oh, man. So, well, good to be back. We got about 3 weeks, and I'm not going to even try to rush this because after that revival, we'll come back to this because I'm not rushing this. This book, let's begin here. So I'm going to mic read. No, you can't. I want this book, I will say, is a book that, as a scholar, I cannot critique this book. I am too wedded to it. I'm very biased about it, and I haven't got to the point where I can actually critique it. And I've been reading this book for 30 plus years. This is written by one of the greatest thinkers and genius that black people have ever produced, period. People, I gotta say, I gotta clarify us, people. Thank you, Betty. But I gotta say, the genius of us. And this is a book that changed my writing and even my speaking cadence, like how I talk. Because I talk in poetry and prose, but the lyricism of W.E.B. Du Bois's writing is not something that people are fans of now, because he says probably things that can be said much simpler, but he doesn't complicate it actually. It's like he's singing it. It moves. It's like music, which is interesting because he begins each chapter with the music bars but this stuff sings, man. It is. Every time I go to read it, I have a fresh emotional reaction to it every time. Is that profound to me, and that important, I think, for any person. This is a book that should be required reading for anyone in literature or African American literature, because the man was pure genius. at a time where he wasn't bound to one discipline, but several different disciplines he wrote in. At a time where black intelligence was not valued, this man was the first person to earn a doctorate from black person from Harvard University. And now he was very bougie, super bougie, um, but his bouginess did not undermine his love for black people, his undying love for black people, and his desire for black people to experience freedom. He leaves this country to move to Ghana. He dies there. Do you know when W.E.B. Du Bois died? On the same day as the March on Washington. Hmm. He died on the same day. And, many of his theories, like the talented 10th, which people don't realize when he left this country, he left disappointed in that idea, in the talented 10th. Because it's this assumption that black people who've achieved would actually look back to build the rest of their people. And he was like, it ain't gonna happen, it ain't happening. So I always approach this book with reverence and humility and a deep desire to learn. Because what he speaks of doesn't just apply to black people, it speaks to people of color and their interactions in this country, but he does it from a particular prism as that of a descendant of slaves. And if you have read it, his forethought is some of the greatest subtle but piercing writing. And when you read Du Bois, like every first line of every chapter is, I always wanted to have like between Du Bois, Baldwin, and Hemingway, I wanted to have that. Because Hemingway and Du Bois, that first line of every chapter just, Hemingway because of his simplicity, but Du Bois because of his lyricism. It is a powerful thing. So what I want to do today, I told some to read them first 3 chapters, but the forethought, the first 2 chapters, that's why I did a very detailed notes so that even those of you who did not read it yet or do not have the book will not feel lost in the conversation. I'm going to try to get through these notes tonight, but I won't rush it. But before we get started, let's pray. We'll go from there. Let's go to God. God, we thank you and we honor you on this night for just being with us, continuing to allow us to experience this life every day as it unfolds. We ask, oh God, that you would just continue to open our hearts and our minds and our eyes, that we would be receptive to what you reveal tonight. We love you, Lord, and we honor you, God. It's in your name we pray, amen. If you need notes as you come in, please indicate. Somebody back there should have some more notes, but who? Okay, you got them, team got them back there. All right, if you need notes, raise your hand. We want to get you. Anybody need notes? Raise your hand if you need notes. Okay. Okay, good. All right. I'm going to read this forethought, and this is a copy of this book that I have that I did not butcher yet totally. I can still read it. Yeah, because it got a lot of other stuff in it. But all right. I'm going to read this forethought and try to do my best without stopping. because it's like every sentence I want to stop and talk about it. So I'm just going to read it and maybe come back at it when you go through the notes. Herein lie buried many things, which if read with patience may show the strange meaning of being black here at the dawning of the 20th century. This meaning is not without interest to you, gentle reader, for the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. I pray you then receive my little book in all charity, studying my words with me, forgiving mistake and foible for sake of the faith and passion that is in me, and seeking the grain of truth hidden there. I have sought here to sketch in vague, uncertain outline the spiritual world in which 10,000 Americans live and strive. First, in 2 chapters, I've tried to show what emancipation meant to them and what was its aftermath. In the 3rd chapter, I've pointed out the slow rise of personal leadership and criticized candidly the leader who bears the chief burden of his race today. Then in 2 other chapters, I have sketched the swift outline, the 2 worlds within and without the veil, and thus have come to the central problem of training men for life. Venturing now into the deeper detail, I have in 2 chapters studied the struggles of the massed millions of the black peasantry, and in another have sought to make clear the present relations of the sons of master and man. Leaving then the world of the white man, I have stepped within the veil, raising it that you may view faintly its deeper recesses, the meaning of its religion, the passion of its human sorrow, and the struggle of its greater souls. All this I have ended with a tale twice told but seldom written. Some of these thoughts of mine have seen the light before in other guise, for kindly consenting to their republication here in altered and extended form. I must thank the publishers of the Atlantic Monthly, the World's Work, the Dial, the New World, and the Annals of the American Academy of Political and Social Science. Before each chapter, as now printed, stands a bar of the sorrow songs, some echo of haunting melody from the only American music which welled up from black souls in the dark past. And finally, I need to add that I who speak here am bone of the bone and flesh of the flesh of them that live within the veil. Some echo of haunting melody from the only American music which welled up. People don't realize that American music begins with black music, because the music that dominated much of America at that time was European music, classical music. Blues, jazz, the sorrow songs, spirituals are the original American music, all born of grief and suffering. The tragedy of many times when I read this book, it is now 2026. This book was written in 1906. And the problem of this century is still the color line. It is still race. I might add, and I added in the margins, race and class, because they play proxy for one another. Our country is well versed in race and racialized dynamics. But the truth is, oftentimes, conversations of race and racial issues and tension serve as a smokescreen from issues of class. If people understood, or even now, dealt more with the class issue, they would even understand what is happening now. Because although the racialization of things is easy to target, that's low-hanging fruit. But whether you are a poor person of color in this country right now or a poor white person, you're suffering. And for some people, the ruse of race gives some people the feeling of superiority because of that. Feelings of superiority with no systemic benefit that comes other than color. So it is I wish that this was not, I wish it wasn't always made new with every generation, the issues around race. But as we know, race is a social construct that has deep economic tentacles and deeply rooted in capitalism, especially in this country. Um, so Du Bois coins terms here, the double consciousness of black people, and in other places I call it the terrible two-ness um, of being black in this country. And so it is very interesting. I also want to read the beginning of the first chapter. Because you'll see, what you also notice when we read through this book, there are many authors who've taken pieces of Du Bois's work and used it. So you'll see things that may rise up in other readings you may have read, but most people who write in our culture in some way have borrowed from Du Bois or used his ideas, including myself. But if you, like Ta-Nehisi Coates, well, you see the opening line of the first chapter is where he gets the title of his book from, Between the World and Me. It's right there, right? So let me read this first paragraph. Between me and the other world, there's an ever unasked question. Unasked by some through feelings of delicacy, by others through the difficulty of rightly framing it. All nevertheless flutter around it. They approach me in a half-hesitant sort of way, eye me curiously or compassionately, and then instead of saying directly, how does it feel to be a problem? They say, I know an excellent colored man in my town, or I fought at Mechanicsville, that's Civil War for y'all know. Or do not these southern outrages make your blood boil? At these I smile or am interested, or reduce the boiling to a simmer as the occasion may require. To the real question, how does it feel to be a problem? I answer seldom a word. Seldom a word. And in that first paragraph, with that last line, what he announces in part is the futility of justifying your presence as a black person or proving your value as a person of color, or constantly looking at your life through the lens of a white gaze shaped by white supremacy. Because white supremacy is not a color, it is an ethos. It is a way of understanding and seeing this world through oppressive lenses, or oppressing lenses, conquering lenses, dominating lenses. And so, what I've done here, and there are parts of the book I'll highlight because they're just pieces all over the place. But for those who have begun to read it, or who, before I begin, or who are familiar with it, what are some thoughts or some things that may have stood out in these first couple of chapters, or if anyone wants to comment? If not, I'll move on. But for those who've read it, impacted, how did you feel? What did it do? Did you have to read it twice? Yeah. And let me tell you the tragedy of reading it twice, though. Not because something's wrong with you. It's our culture. I wrote an article, I forget what I wrote it for, but I said we're in a time where we're experiencing the terminus of words, where we've lost a deep appreciation for words. And it is amazing as I read Du Bois, part of the reason why Du Bois becomes difficult is not because something is wrong with you, it's because we no longer love reading. And not that I read, but we often read things that we're drawn to, not things that push us. And the only thing about Du Bois's language that is challenging is it's lyrical. We memorize lyrics of songs, no matter how complicated or confusing they may be. But if you approach it as lyrics to a song that is speaking about one central thing, It becomes a little bit easier. And that's why I did these extensive notes, because we don't normally talk this way anymore. Du Bois is a child of the 19th century, you know, and language was different, communication was different. When this book is written, there's no distractions, there's no television, radio is not everywhere. It is books and reflection and conversation and living in your mind and school and magazines. It is how you understood life. And your expansiveness as a person was connected to your depth and commitment to reading. You encountered the world through words. You encountered the world through books. Places you could not imagine ever going, things you could not imagine ever experiencing was encountered through the written word. So there was no driving cross country, especially as a black person, for the most part. It's dangerous. There was no just flying. Flying wasn't something accessible to everybody here in 1906. You had boats, you had trains, and those could be grueling treks, especially if you get into the deep south and the movements of black people are relegated. And so you learned, you encountered the world through words, through books, through periodicals. And that's how people understood, you know. As my generation, we gathered around a TV. The generation immediately before me, you gathered around the radio. And the generation before that, you read a book. This is why reading was so critical. Your world expanded with your ability to read. So reading wasn't just about going through school. Reading was how you understood life in some ways at a different depth, right? And that's why it was such a pressing thing to be literate. It's something we take for granted now and forget about books, you know. But reading is critical. And it's a muscle. So that the more you read, the more critical of a thinker you are. Reading a paragraph on a post is not reading. But if you reduce your intake of information to these small things, then that means long-form writing and reading no longer appeals to you, which means because your brain can be shaped, you study neuroplasticity, your brain can be rewired, and the more of that intake, that short form, quick burst, it becomes difficult. You don't find it difficult to focus when you're reading something and to stay committed to it. It's difficult not because you can't read, because you don't know what it is to experience something without a distraction. So you be reading the book and know what you do in the middle of the paragraph? Pick up the phone, scroll, come back. Because the long form reading becomes a little painful to your system. And the more that you consume of the screen, the less you have an appeal to read, because you're wiring your brain in a particular way. So that you only begin to read in excerpts, not in whole. Right? You're going to go up, and then God forbid AI, give me a summary of the first chapter of W.E.B. Du Bois' Souls of Black Folk. And then you give yourself the illusion that you have knowledge in it, but you never encountered it. You didn't experience the book. This is why in some ways I don't do digital books. I got to have the book in my hand. I got to have the Sunday New York Times in my hand. I got to mark it up. I got to tear out the article. I got to file it in my stuff. Not just because I love reading, I do, but because I like working this. Right? I might not get to the gym like I want to, but I got calluses on my brain. That's important, you know, to read. And I tell people this all the time. It is so important. We've lost the capacity to be analytical thinkers. We're losing the capacity to be critical thinkers. We're so used to receiving information and not discovering it, not finding it, right? We want to just be given it. And we're often given other people's opinions in this world of opinion. So it is a time where reading this and being committed to these kinds of readings It's probably more necessary than we think if we want to save our minds. So, because right now, I said it from the pulpit a few weeks ago, we feast on digital junk food every day. As I said in the sermon, I kept getting junk food, more cavities. So, cavities in my teeth, what is deteriorating in your brain? What is deteriorating? There was a time when you heard people say ADHD. We all in some way suffer from it. Because we have so many distractions. So many things that consume our eyes. And so that's why I always say we live in an attentional, not intentional, attentional economy where the greatest commodity that exists right now is your attention. And everybody's vying for it. And people paying big money for it to get your attention, right? If I could pull you away. You see some young people and some older people in these unhealthy, unnatural relationships with their phone. You see somebody lose a phone, they break out in a cold sweat. Like an addict. Try going 2 days without your phone. Some folk will lose their mind. Try unplugging. You lose your mind. Because the first thing, what's the first way you justify you need a phone? Got to call somebody. Because see, some of us came up in a time where you had 50 numbers in your head. Or in a little book. You carried that little book in your back pocket, or you had at least 10 or 12 numbers in your head. Home, your mom, your best friend, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, about 3 or 4 other friends, family members, cousins, uncles, all here. You just got the phone. Boom, 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 boom. Now, if you go somewhere and they say emergency contact, you be like, let me get my phone because I can't. It be your mother's number. You be like, what's my mother's number? That's what's happening right now. So we came in a time where memory was important, remembering is important, but everything is being fed, which means this muscle is weakening and atrophying. And we don't realize it. Why we don't realize it, the deterioration? Because of the dopamine hit you getting from the gratification on that phone. So we don't even realize what's happening. Anybody in here who has ever battled addiction knows what addiction does to you. It's the dopamine hit. It's the rush. It's what you want, right? And you try this game. I know you try this game. You get on the phone, like, I'm just going to be on TikTok for like 40 minutes. And then 4 hours later, your left hand hurt and this finger hurt. Or the thumb. You sitting there. Now, I have to admit, let me not sit here and be a hypocrite. I get on TikTok. My TikTok usage is very specific. I'm almost ashamed of it. No, I'm not ashamed of it. No, I don't shop. Well, let me say it all the time. No, I'm joking. But no, TikTok to me, I already explained my thing with TikTok. Shop is genius to me. They undermine so much. It's hilarious. But I love, like, comical things, pranks and stuff. Because I like laughing. You got to laugh every day. You got to find reasons. And then not only the pranks sometimes, but like when they be roasting one, like snapping. Remember when you just snap on people, crack on people? When they be roasting, I be sitting there locked in. I got my alarm on the phone set. When that alarm go off, I can stop it because I ain't going to be that dude getting caught. When that alarm go, whenever I get on TikTok, I put the alarm on, and I instantly, when the alarm go off, I'm done. You got to do that. Because you sit there and waste time. And I be doing it laughing. But it's funny to me. I got some great jokes. And the dad jokes, too. The corny dad jokes. That stuff is hilarious to me. I don't know what that is, but it's hilarious, man. But, yeah, so that's why we read, and that's why we read certain books. And we're going to read some difficult books this year, too. More difficult than this, so get ready. One of the books I'm weighing today is from Frederick Jameson, who was a philosophy professor at Duke while I was there, on postmodernism. But I'm going to weigh that. I may be a little bit much, but just to read in general. But all right, Souls of Black Folk. Yes, ma'am. Going to get them. Oh, 1 and then 2. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, in reading the book, I enjoyed the fact that I was able to learn some new words.
Come on.
So
Let me ask you a question. When you read, do you read with a dictionary next to you?
I, I
Or
read
the
with my
phone?
phone next
Yeah,
to
yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah.
and then I'm writing down the words and the
Good.
definitions.
Good.
So I got sick of fussy, the act of obsequious flattery or
What is it?
acting as a yes man
sycophant.
yeah,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
gain advantage, often involving insincere praise or aligning with the superior's
Yeah.
opinion over truth. And then the other one I liked was demagogy.
Demagogue.
Demagogy.
Demagogue.
Demagogy.
Yeah. No, just Gog. No E. Demagogue.
Okay.
It's
It's a
just
style of political leadership that gains power by appealing to emotions, prejudices, and ignorance rather than rational argument, often using scapegoating and fake promises to manipulate the public. And I was
Hold on.
thinking about some of the politicians.
Yes, stop. I was about to say, of all the words you can pull out tonight, you pulled out the two words that capture this moment, especially in our sycophants, they call it, and demagogues, or demagoguery, if you want to put it. That it captures this moment, right? People who kiss butt to get where they need to get to, and sit there, worshiping the person who's just, yeah. And demagogue, you see one, People don't, any mental health professionals in here? Mental health professionals? You said you want to be a professional. So, okay, so mental health. Let me tell you what people don't want to say publicly, but our country is led by a person. This is let me see my mental health professionals again. Let me see the hands. By someone who has a cluster B personality disorder. It's a narcissist. That's a mental health issue, especially when it becomes pathological. And that's what we got to understand first. It doesn't beget sympathy, but you need to understand we're dealing with somebody who's not balanced, and that's why it's insane. And at some point, when I say, I felt like I was prophetic months ago. I know I was prophetic. One sermon that if you listen to it, it's still relevant and will always be relevant. Evil doesn't know when to stop. Evil doesn't know when to stop. Because evil, I said, if the sermon will eventually turn on itself. So you watch what's happening. Now you get the people support. Now they mad. Now you want to be Jesus. And now you got the evangelicals. Now, let me tell you what's funny about this. With many of the right-wing conservative evangelicals who now mad because of that picture he posted. So you ain't had a problem comparing him to Jesus. You just had a problem with him trying to look like Jesus. You know how ignorant that is? I was on a radio show today, and I said, Donald Trump lied like a child who don't realize there's adults in the room. Think about that. No. That's a perfect way. He lied like a child who don't know there are adults in the room. Real talk. But that is what we're dealing with. And if you research that and look, you will understand what we're dealing with. And that eventually there comes a point where a narcissist no longer compartmentalizes people. Everybody is for the taking. And that's what you see. Because, if you want to try, you could take on a lot of people, but man, the Pope really ain't a wise one. Especially when you got a Pope who really ain't scared. My man said, I ain't scared no Trump administration. You know how my chest stuck out, right? Because I don't know if you know the Pope is black. I don't know if you know that. See, well, he's Creole, but he ain't white. That's my point. Oh, you were saying it. Oh, yeah, he's Creole. On both sides. Yeah, on both sides. Yeah, that's why I say he's black. I thought you were trying to make a distinction from it. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, no, on both sides of his family. And from Louisiana. And then the family moved to Chicago. And they were black on the census in Louisiana and became white on the census in Chicago. There's a nice word for that called passing. Right. So yeah. So that's that. So I know I know, Vic, if them Cardinals who was in there voting, I'm convinced if they knew, it was already big to get an American, the first American pope. But boy, people, if you remember the conclave, which was powerful, right? We watched it before, and to talk about the African, will the African be the Pope? And it was real talk about African being the Pope because, can we finally get the first, the place where Catholicism is growing the fastest is in Africa. So the idea is, well, you should have an African Pope at some point. So, man, they did one better. They said, we gonna get an American one, and had no idea that his roots was among black people. Boy, but watch this. You ever watch him walk, though? Oh, watch him walk. You can hide a lot of stuff, but that right there, you can't hide. You gotta watch him walk. Just watch him walk. You be like, wait a minute, brother. He be like, and then he was looking like, yo, I love this dude. He was like, man, I'm not afraid of the Trump administration. Like, come on, man. And then the Stations of the Cross, he carried the cross all 14 states. Pope has never done that. There's a beautiful picture of him on Holy Week where he's prostrate, laying on his face, praying. Like, this dude is intense, man. Like, and everybody thought he was going to be, real quiet and what have you, just, nah, that war broke out. My man said, nah, buddy. So, God is not on the side of people who start wars. Period. God don't stand on the side of that. Nor people who create poverty, nor death dealing, warmongering. No, don't try to use God for that. I was like, go ahead, man. He was like, I gotta speak out on this stuff. I can't be quiet. I love it, but I'm telling you right now, it's like the conclave for real. If they knew the truth behind the person, because the conclave was genius. And how timely that then shortly after that, the Pope passes. And we actually, now you know what they were doing. Uh-oh, you done broke my stuff. My grandmother had a fit. What you touching the curtain for anyway? Stop playing my curtains. Everybody's grandmother was like that, right? Well, I'm a Caribbean, but this is like for most of your house. You ever had, this is my folk, let me see my folk in here now. You ever had, in your house there was transitions. A transition from the hallway to the kitchen. Now, how many of y'all transition was them beads? You had to, come on, all right, there you go. I just want to make sure. See, if you young, you don't know nothing about them beads. The bead, you had to, and you better not play with them beads neither. That was a whooping right there. You coming through and you trying to hold on to the beads. And you trying to twist the beads. See, I know y'all weren't here. That's the transition. You don't just walk from the entry to the kitchen or from there to the living room. You got beads. And it only one set, though. You can't have a bunch. But the set lets you know what's the main entry point with the beads, man. What? I'm really going to put the tester. Because you not only had the beads, but you had the plastic covers in the living room. What? Go outside and play and try and take a nap on that. You be stuck trying to get up. All wet and dripping on your face. I'm telling you, wake up sweaty. Face sticking to the couch. You got wet marks on the doggone plastic. You got to wipe the plastic off after you've been sleeping on it. See, that's when that's my people right there, boy. The beads and the plastic. I got to take, let me tell you, you keep your black card if you had that. Beads and plastic. Man, what? Boy, we something else. Can I really push you? Back in the days, boy, who had the 8-track player in the living room? Come on, what? Y'all know, see there? Look at the people who got their hands up. Look at the people who got their hands up. An 8-track with the holder with all the tapes on the side? What? And come on, man. 8-track in the car, you was, what? What? Man, y'all playing. Y'all ain't heard no music till you heard the 8-track. You hear 8-track play. Boy, if this is an 8-track, now you're like, this is horrible. Back in the days, you be jamming. Don't get a good speaker hooked up. You jamming. You know what I'm saying? 78, you in the party, lights off. Slow dragging. Notice I said dragging. You know, that's what you know. I ain't say dancing. Come on, man. Turn up to be hot and sweaty in the basement. Mama come home, turn the lights on. Like, what you doing out here? Get these lights off in my house. No slow music playing. What's wrong with you? 45. See, I just want to check, make sure, you know, I love having these conversations around younger people because there's certain common things that this digitalization happened before then. There was a multiple generations experiencing the same kind of technology because it wasn't advancing as fast, you know. But if you had an 8-track, man, what? And then you got a stereo, 45. You had a record player, you had to put a little penny or quarter on top and make sure it didn't skip. What? Because you, look, boy, be playing something on the radio with a record and somebody stomp real hard in the house. You be mad. Don't you messing up my record? You messing up my record? Scratching my record. What? You sitting there with the record, make sure ain't no scratch you? Alcohol, right? Clean my records, bro. That's a whole thing. What? Y'all don't know nothing about that. Cleaning the records? All right, this is my last time. I just had to have these things for fun moment. Let me see if you really, this is the other way. This should be one of those questions on those, was it the black card the question? Now, let me see. Because let me know if your house was, you was real, everybody. If you didn't have this, something was wrong in your house. If you didn't have the Jackson 5 Christmas album, what? If you did not have the Jackson 5 Christmas album with the picture of the box and the ribbon and the boys and the pictures, what? But I saw Mama kissing Santa Claus. What? Everybody had the Jackson 5 Christmas. For years, play it every Christmas. The Jackson 5 Christmas album. Huh? Sits on Apple now. Man, what? Jackson 5 Christmas. Okay, all right, I'm enough. I went back. You gotta have those nostalgic moments sometime. Right? Hangers on TV with pliers, vice grips on the vice grips. Why you laugh? Vice grips on the TV. You're like, why you need a vice grip? Because you done broke the knob. You gotta turn the channel, Blair. You gotta. What you doing? You had the vice grip. If you walk in the house, if you saw the rabbit ears and the vice grip locked on, you knew where you were. You know where you were. And then, you know, regular TV went off, so then you had to be smart and sneak at night and put it on channel U. Remember U? And then turn the top knob, trying to find something that come on. You had the main TV on U, and you got the top knob on top with like 30-something, 40-something. And you ain't get nothing, which is what you heard. W.E.B. York. That's how you got the Spanish channel. What? Am I lying? Man, you be sitting there trying to get them other channels to work. You ain't seeing nothing but fuzz and like two people, and you hearing W.E.B. York, Lucha Libre. Y'all remember this, the wrestler? I'm telling you. Y'all tripping. Y'all don't know nothing about it. I'm telling my age. Look, man, them were some good days, Jack. But you know why I say that and we laugh? Because the reason why there were more things, deeper engagement, they were simpler times. Much simpler times, right? You couldn't wait. Watch, y'all gonna see how smooth I am with this conversation. You couldn't wait to ask your parents or somebody, your block, your aunt, for money for the book fair. Or when the bookmobile came, you can go buy a book. You actually wanted to have money for the book fair to be able to walk away with some books to take home. It was a simpler time. But what was a forefront was reading in some ways. And we've lost that because in our complicated culture, in our digital age, we are being distracted to death by, as I said, digital junk food and creating mental cavities. All right, so yeah. All right. Star Spangled Banner. Yeah, you knew it, with the flag on the TV, fake waving. And then after that, jacket was boom. You know. What? I told you, it was, see, you see how you started, I'm trying to move on. You know how good it was? It was so simple that you can memorize the entire TV guide for the week. You knew every show, every time, on every station. And you knew the stories was coming on. You know, General Hospital was at 3 o'clock. Can I take you back? Edge of Night was at 4:30. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Y'all playing. Y'all don't know nothing about that. Dallas, Who Shot JR? Knots Landing. What? Man, Three's Company. Come on. Welcome Back, Carter. Barney Miller. What? Starsky and Hutch. The Rockford Files. Beretta. Columbo. What? The $6 Million Man. The Bionic Woman. What? Shazam. Y'all play too much. What? Oh, Twilight Zone. Huh? Black and white. What? Oh, that's what we talking about. We ain't got the color yet. You don't know. You trying to guess what color the jacket is. I bet you it's red. It's black and white. What you talking about? Man, what? Get Smart. Yeah, Julia. Electric Company. Cat. What? Y'all don't know about that. Dog. He was like, what? Conjunction, junction? What's your function? What? Yeah, man. See, the young folk, they laugh because they know they ain't never see you get excited. You get excited about this stuff. Romper Room. What? Sesame Street. Y'all play too much. Mr. Rogers. Bozo the Clown. What? Captain Kangaroo. Y'all playing. Huh? Superman, yeah. Zoom, man. Fraggle Rock. Which y'all know? Come on. What? Y'all mess around too much. These things, you knew this stuff, boy. Who? Right. Bonanza. Wonder Woman. Can I mess you up? Saturday, 3 o'clock, karate movies. Channel 5. 3 o'clock on Saturday. Everybody in the street until that karate movie come on, and then you come out to us, oh, what? What? You got to practice what you done learned on the TV. What? You tripping? That's right. Man, life was simple. Simple. We knew everything. News came on. You knew who the meteorologist was. You knew what time it came. You knew the anchors were. Man, remember what a big deal it was when Sue Simmons was an anchor on NBC? What? Man, y'all, telling you, man, simpler world. The who? Oh, yeah, we talked. Oh, yeah, we ain't missed that. You know, we didn't say TV antennas. You talking about the hangers. The wire hangers. See, because you was fancy. If your parents could go buy the little antenna with the two knobs and the thing on top, the TV, that's when you was fancy. But no, you didn't know that. A good hanger and some vice grips. You was in the house. You was all right. You would turn and like, let me get this. Hold on, don't, no, right, no, don't. With the wire. No, hold it like this. Or you roll the TV on the cart to the next room. Oh my gosh. Well, you know what we just said? We old. we up here. We alive though. Right? Dead folk have no memory. We alive. All right, here we go. Don't say nothing else. Don't say nothing about Soul Train on Saturday morning. What? You want to see a classic? I'm going to tell you right now. No, I'm going to tell you right now. This is my last comment. This for everybody. I'm going to tell you an episode to watch. And the coldest performance, well, there was always cold performance, because the early Soul Train was live music. When no lip syncing and come into the late 70s, early 80s, they came out there lip syncing. But if you watch some early Soul Train, because back in the days, you had to be able to sing. Wasn't no computers and generating. You had to cut. And that's why most singers came from the church. Because the church is where you had to perform in front of people live. So by the time you took those people from church into the studios, they was fine with it, but they could sing. I'm going to tell you one of the coldest Soul Train performance. There's a lot, because you could go back to because I'm going to tell you who was faithful. Boy, you catch the OJs on the Soul Train. The OJs? What? The OJs? I'm going to tell you what. You got to watch this one performance on I forget the year. It is Al Green. Wait a minute. For the Good Times. If you ain't never watched that, you go home on YouTube tonight and watch Al Green singing For the Good Times on Soul Train. One of the coldest performances you will ever see, man. Live, hypnotizing folk in there. Al was dangerous, boy. All right, For the Good Times. That my man, boy, look. Boy, let me tell you right now, I could sing when it comes to Al Green and For the Good Times. I hold the note on that one because Al was working magic, Jack. Watch the performance. All right. Forethought, naming the problem and framing the soul. And I'm not gonna move fast, but and you see how I'm breaking it out to the sections of the forethought, all right? There are 4 sections to the fourth. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry, it's 6. The burden of speaking the truth. Du Bois opens with humility and urgency. He is not just writing history, but as James Baldwin was saying, he's a witness. He's bearing witness to the experience. He's introducing, and I love how Du Bois frames those who are looking as a gentle reader. But he says in this moment, we are stepping beyond the veil. And he's standing as one who has experienced the dysfunction and the damage of the two-ness. He acknowledges the risk. Telling the truth about race in America invites discomfort and resistance. And it still does. We don't have a lot of I think sophisticated conversations about race. And the central question of this forethought that he lays out before you get to the first chapter is, how does it feel to be a problem? This haunting question defines Du Bois's entire work. The entire book is dealing with how blackness is problematized in this country and how it has been problematic on so many different levels in this country, right? As he alludes, a black existence in America is framed not as humanity, but as a social dilemma the black question. Or if you're familiar with the Holocaust, it was then the Jewish question, right? There's a movie I know everybody like. I'm a movie cinephile. If you got Netflix, check out Nuremberg. There's a movie called Nuremberg, Russell Crowe. Amazing. And what's his name? Rami Malek, I think the guy. And I think his name. Powerful insight on, and he's a psychiatrist trying to analyze. And you get to it, and what he, and I'll give it to you, because you know me, if it's Netflix and you ain't watched it, that's your problem. Because I mean, it passed the movies and everything. You've been on there forever. But you get to this idea, he wants to understand evil. And what you realize is that you can't understand evil. You can't, right? So when you talk about in this book for black folk to be looked as a problem for this country, it is still there and not looked upon, as Du Bois would say, because we are a social problem to be fixed. We are a question to be answered in this country. Yes, ma'am. Hold on, let's get this mic. Yeah, so people watching can hear your question.
Okay, that makes sense. So,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
so I felt like when I was reading the book, so I think that's still even something that's done in education. So for undergrad, I went to Lehman, and it was all pushing for black, brown, it was kind of like empowerment. Like, this school's going to be even, like, a little bit harder, so therefore, you can stand out when you go face the world.
Yeah.
Then I took my A's, and I said, oh, I'm going for my master's to somewhere different, because I did good, and I went to Columbia. And the experience was totally
night and day.
So first of all, with social work, they kind of like just teach from this like prop thing, which means that you're supposed to look at it from like your privilege, your power, race, oppression. And by the time you were finishing the semester, because social work is a theme that deals with vulnerable populations, people seem to think that's only black and brown people. By the time we got well into the semester, the class was divided because I did a lot, I did the online program, and it kind of was like, you had people from certain areas of the world that never even seen black people until they got to like undergrad, right?
Yeah.
They was honest, like we never seen. But then it kind of started looking at, what's like, how does it feel to be the problem? So it kind of was like a divide. It was like you had some people that were not of, black culture looking at us like, well, how does it feel? And then, you had a couple of people that we all went to Columbia together, like, we were confident enough to say, well, we all got in school because we made it and got straight A's. So now there's still race, but you will talk to me a certain way.
Yeah.
Because you can look down according to you, but not too much because we all made it here. The grades got
Well, not you. You because of DEI, or you because of affirmative action. Yeah, no, I'm being facetious, yes.
Yeah,
but that's the thought.
That was the mentality.
That is the mentality.
My loans don't say that that's why I got in it. But
Yeah.
My grades. That was really the mindset that a lot of, so literally these discussions became so hard during class that it was literally a divide. It was really a racial divide between black and white by the time we graduated, because it was, us black and brown saying we belong, and it was a lot of white people saying we don't. And it was like really like, okay, well, we're going to kick through the door with you. But it was really an education.
Yeah, no, I think that is it. It is not being viewed in, and we'll get through it, but it's not being viewed in the fullness of your humanity. You're like a human being with an asterisk, right? It's always a reason you in here, or a reason, it's deep. It's deep. I don't, he's not here tonight, but I won't say it. One of our security shared an experience he had with me traveling recently, and said he was an older white woman who was very nice. They were having a conversation. Because a lot of people actually, black and white, we both live within narratives of one another, ideas and stereotypes. And we allow the stereotypes to shape our assumptions, and then we sometimes think our assumptions are definitive, right? And the woman didn't say this with any stink. They had a whole conversation. They had a nice conversation. And then she says to him, it must have been a hardship for your family, you and your family, for you to be able to get this first class ticket. Literally said this. Of an elderly, older wife. So who the whole flight was nice and talk. But again, we would instantly be like, oh my God, yes, you can do that and correct that. But at the same time, what you realize is that this is a person who is living through a particular narrative of blackness. And in her mind and possibly in her world, there's an immediate association with blackness and poverty and struggle, right? That this must have been a hardship for you to get this first class ticket. But that's the mentality. Hold on, she had the, right there. Y'all gonna let me get through this too, because y'all ain't gonna be doing this.
God, this is so good. I have to say praise the Lord when I'm in the church. I met you, I guess, a couple weeks ago. I'm here from Detroit, and I'm one of those habitual visitors. So I live here now, so thank you. Gosh, there's so much I want to say, but what I have to stand up and say is I really commend you as a pastor and your flock doing this. I came here for Bible study. She'll tell you I was disappointed. I was like,
I saw your face. No, I saw your face. When I saw your face when you came in and sat down. I don't miss anything.
Oh, you saw how I was.
I saw how you was looking. Yes.
And I was like, so is a black. And I heard you say it Sunday, but I thought it was like something separate from Bible study. And I came, the security guard said I came last Sunday because I missed that you said you weren't having Bible study. So
okay, gotcha.
I was very disappointed. Okay. But I'm so proud of you all. I just wish it was some more younger people here.
No, they here. Look around.
Well, this is young woman.
Well, you got my two cats back there. You got the sister up here.
Okay, all right.
No, they all over. They all over.
So two things I'm gonna say because I want to be respectful of time. Going back to the book, and I did not just read this book. I've read it like you several times, and probably the first time was almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
The Veil.
I'm about to hit that next.
The hard part about that is that still exists today.
Absolutely.
And it is exhausting. I'm in corporate America. My enterprise is retirement now. But I am still, after 35 years of having an expertise MBA from Northwestern University, having to wear the veil and prove, I think you said this early on, prove my value and my worth. I'm in a company that there's a partnership. I cannot break the ceiling. The glass ceiling, I'm right there, but they keep putting me in the positions to do the work, but won't give me that generational wealth, because when you make partner, that's generational wealth.
Yeah.
So it still exists today. It is exhausting and it is frustrating, and I unfortunately don't know that I'm gonna see anything change in my lifetime for that. I hope so, especially through these young people. And I just want to say, like you were talking about, I'm going to share a story. When I went to Northwestern, I went to a program that's between Kellogg and Medill. You remember this in grads, we had to do case studies, and you had teams. The white people literally, the professors, one of the professors was the students, the professors would put us in teams, and the white folk would meet and not tell us, and we'd come to class looking like we weren't prepared. What the white professors did for us, and it was our courage to go to them, there were 8 black women in this program, and I was one of them. They allowed us to make our own group study, and we were our study group until we graduated from that program. So there are some good white folk out there.
It's a lot.
And the woman that you're talking about on the plane, she still could be a good person, but a lot of times it's their ignorance. But this having always to prove ourselves, the two sides that we have to play. And I'm going to say one more thing. You mentioned about people mimic W.E.B. Du Bois' style and writing. I'm writing a book right now that speaks to my challenge as a black woman living in black and white America. And it has a lot of similarities to what W.E.B. Du Bois talks about, but the unfortunate part is this is 2026, and that was 1906.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I'll leave it there, but thank you guys for letting me be a habitual visitor of your church.
No, well, that's the next time I was going to talk about in the notes, the veil as a defining reality. He introduces concept of a veil. a separation between black and white America, a distortion of perception. Black people are seen but not truly known. So that life behind the veil produces both pain and insight. It's the veil, and it's that two-ness you have to wear. I'm going to bring it up in a second, but I'm jumping ahead of myself. But it's this, sometimes you call it code switching. It's being in a world where you're not fully seen, but still must somehow push through in the midst of that. And as you use the right word, it is exhausting in some spaces. Especially if you find yourself working in spaces where there's only a handful of African Americans, black folk, and you find yourself being looked upon as a certain way. In some spaces, you're the spokesman for black folk, or it's how Du Bois says it, when there's trying an attempt to make a connection, well, I knew some good color folk in my town, or these Southern outrages, they're talking about the Southern lynching and violence, So it's just very interesting, the double consciousness. And these are all pieces, this is taken from the forethought, which really leads to divide itself. So the black individual lives with a two-ness, American and Negro, self-perception and imposed perception, how you see yourself and how you're told you should see yourself. And this all creates an internal tension where you're striving for wholeness in your fractured identity. This is why, if you don't know, I talk about this in the book I wrote, Searching for Agabus. I was supposed to talk about it Sunday because they were selling it again outside. But it's this part of that book is to really fight against the desire to look for validation outside of yourself. That is a byproduct of this two-ness, of the veil, where you're constantly trying to find ways to be validated so you can actually feel good about who you are, not realizing that doing that, we talk about race here, but in other ways, doing that is actually undermining yourself. The more you engage in that kind of work of having to prove yourself, prove your value, or be validated by external realities, you take away from yourself, you minimize yourself, you lessen yourself, and you stop trusting yourself, right? So this is why I'm always big on being authentically you and honoring the uniqueness of who you are, because we're in a culture now, even race is real. So if you hear the narratives of the racial constructs, as my sister just shared, but if you add to that racial subculture, then you also have this kind of digital subculture where you have this kind of perfectionism economy that is also happening, as well as the attentional economy, right? So now everyone wants to, listen, if this is why filters on the phone are so popular. You don't want people to see the real you. The problem is you can't live life filtered. And at some point you got to step from behind the screen and people are going to see you. Right? But all of this current cultural moment really is actually succeeding in pulling us away from ourselves. Now add on to that the kind of fracturing that takes place because of race in America. Then add on to that the fracturing that takes place because of classism in this country. So you got classes, the class divide, the racial divide, and the digital divide, but the negative impacts of our digital engagement that don't go talked about. The downside of all this screen time and consumption, because it is leading to depression. I keep saying it, despair, because the more you see that you're not, the more you feel inadequate, right? And if everything is telling you this is what you need to look like, this is what you need to wear, this is where you need to live, this is where you need to go to vacation, this is where you go to eat, that means you actually live under the illusion, when your life is governed by that, you live under the illusion that you're actually making free choices. And choice is one of the freedoms we do have. When choice is co-opted by algorithms, you lose freedom. So you're not making a choice to discover anything. You're making choices so that there's commonality and familiarity and also sameness with people. So somebody say, hey, man, look, we got to go to, Turks and Caicos because so-and-so Drake was talking about. Then all of a sudden, everybody going there. But not to discover, but to still fit in and be relevant and to establish some level of value to yourself. Let alone the idea that we're so consumed with capturing images that we don't experience the image. So if everything you do, you're holding to catch it, to catch it. And then what does it say about you when you're trying to find the right way to capture yourself? You're contorting yourself to get the right shot. But what's happening if it's the right shot, but it ain't a real you? See? So these are things that we don't understand, how they're pulling us further. It is pulling us further and further away from ourselves. So again, you add what is happening because of the digitization of our culture on top of racial issues, on top of class issues, on top of sexism. You keep going on and on. This is why there's so much social turmoil in our culture right now, right? Yes.
One sentence here in my book on page 2.
Mm-hmm.
One ever feels his two-ness, and you touched on this earlier.
Yep.
An American, a Negro.
Mm-hmm.
Two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings.
Mm-hmm.
See, I started underlining. Two warring ideals
Yep.
in one dark body. But here's where I started underlining.
Mm-hmm.
Whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder.
That's it.
And I would like to hear us talk more about the strengths within us.
Yeah, but this is when I came back from Egypt and I said how we have memorialized trauma, but not our triumphs and our power.
Yeah.
Because we're told that the way that we've been socialized to think that the way that we relate to culture is from a place of lack, right? What we don't have, what we should be, versus who we are and what we are. Because as he said in E, look at point E under the thought, this gift of second sight, though painful, life behind the veil gives black people a unique clarity. The ability to see America as it truly is, not just as it claims to be. This is why back in the day you heard scripture say, well, the salvation of America is in black people. Not because black people are superheroes, but because black people actually do not look at this country under any delusions about it. And we have let's be clear. Those of us, because the thing is, Du Bois is genius. Let me see, there's a part in this where he says, oh God. Where did it say it? The history of the strife, the long, it gotta be, hold on. Oh, here it is. It's on, of our spiritual strivings, this would be the second full, because mine is different. My book is page 9, but it's not. So it's on the first page of our spiritual strivings. Then you turn it, especially on the third page, it starts with the history of the American Negro is the history of this strife, this longing to attain self-conscious manhood, to merge his double self into a better and truer self. In this merging, he wishes neither of the older selves to be lost. He would not Africanize America, for America has too much to teach the world in Africa. He would not bleach his Negro soul in the flood of white Americanism, for he knows that Negro blood has a message for the world. He simply wishes to make it possible for a man to be both Negro and an American without being cursed and spit upon by his fellows, without having the doors of opportunity closed roughly in his face. So what he says is that I don't have a problem with being American and black, but somehow it is my blackness that's a problem for America. And I'm fine with being me. But this culture says something is wrong with being me. And it seeks to bleach the soul. Now, here's a deep thing. Because we're in an age right now where people literally bleach their skin. But Du Bois in 1906 is suggesting, forget the bleaching of the skin, because there's another bleaching that happens before the bleach. It's the bleaching of the soul. Where you're made to not appreciate yourself, losing yourself in this idea of whiteness connected to goodness, connected to America, connected to patriotism. Right? It doesn't change. That's why this book is so brilliant. It's so genius because you can imagine writing a book 120 years ago and it rings absolutely true today. It seems like if he was speaking and writing it now, it would make sense. Like this is, I mean, deep. And then on F, the goal, look, a better and truer self, not assimilation. That's what he says. It's not assimilation we don't want. That's what he basically says in this really going in that first chapter. We don't want to lose ourselves, right? The language we would use then would be integration, you see here, to be both black and American without contradiction. The ultimate aim is a society where one's identity is not a burden. That is, I mean, when blackness becomes your burden, the kind of psychological contortions you go through to remain sane, and sanity is not about this kind of chemical balance. Sane, in this context, to remain sane is to still see the value in your blackness without the need to assimilate, without the need to be anything else, right? And know this, that to live that life will come with consequences. But it may also birth a freedom that make the consequences worth it. See, we've been so hypnotized in these cultural moments that we don't even understand what freedom is. We have no idea what freedom is when we're constantly being told what's valuable, what's important, right? Look up. I'm not going to talk about it tonight. Look up on your, not now because you pay attention, but do a little project. Look up why diamonds are valuable and when they became valuable. Just look up the history of the diamond industry, right? There's an article about it? Okay, okay. Good, you know. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's advertising, but a particular kind connected to the diamond industry. Everything. Listen. In this country, there was a period where breakfast was not seen as the most important meal of the day. And then the breakfast food industry started marketing. All of a sudden, the commercial is telling you that you got to start your day with some Eggo waffles and some orange juice and some big. All of a sudden, because of marketing, the breakfast industry became a big deal. But there was a time in history where breakfast wasn't seen as the most important meal of the day, right? Go ahead, Tyson. Hold on. You get the mic. Who has the mic? Oh, you was walking without the mic.
You're not fired.
Yeah.
So two things. One is.
Hold on, I'm laughing because that's what your friend tells you when you're about to get fired. Go ahead.
But I know, so don't be mad at me.
No.
But I just wanted to let people know that if you have an iPhone and books, you can get the book for free digitally. So because there's copyright is over. Because it's over 100 years old. So
Yeah.
just wanted to say that if someone wasn't sure about getting the book, or they couldn't afford it, or they needed to read it tonight. So I'm actually doing doctoral research, and it is all about Black philanthropy, and it's talking about sort of thinking about philanthropy in the sense of American philanthropy and how Black people practice it. And it's a practitioner's program, so my whole goal is to move the sector. So I have a very high Black self-esteem, and so I've never thought what we do less than, and particularly I think that's centered in Black church. So I don't know, some people may feel very privileged to be able to give and to support kids that were the 40 that went to HBCUs, or we have like the best food pantry in the world. So sorry to say that, but I just moved to New York a year ago, and I have never seen a black church with a food pantry like this. I'm like, I'm really hyped. I can't wait till I can volunteer. As soon as I get a little bit more time when I finish this work. But I just wanted to just when you were talking about the American and blackness, I think that is something that we all kind of have to live in to adapt what he's talking about, but also the same question coming in right now is that we really have to live in the space because sometimes we minimize what that black part is or culture. So even Pastor joking about TV and the beats and the thing, but there's nice feeling of having pride in it.
Yes.
And so when I think about black liberation, the black church, and I think about black philanthropy and how I'm using the National Museum of African American History and Culture because we showed out. We really showed out.
We gave money. Yes, we gave.
177,000 of us showed out to support that museum, and we continue to this day. And it raises the most money of any Smithsonian museum. If you didn't know that, I just want you to check it. But I just wanted to just make that point, and for us to think about as we go through our lives, and we think about things about our blackness that we minimize, to raise that consciousness level up. And I think this book will be phenomenal in it.
Oh, absolutely. And I got ahead of myself, by the way, too. I lifted and got ahead of myself. So let me stay within the forethought. But thank you for that, Tysus. Because I think it is important to understand. And this is what I say, for the church was our philanthropic arm at a time. This is where monies were given to build, to establish institutions. And what I also know about that, even giving an example of museum, is that we give and spend on what we want to. It's not always that we don't have. It's about the choices we make and choose to give to, right? So I think that's important, but I love that, and I'm excited about that work you're doing. The last part Du Bois gives is the structure of the book. F, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead to another F, but F here. Du Bois signals that what follows will blend. He tells you in the outline of the chapters, history, sociology, personal narrative, spiritual reflection. When he gets to that, the chapter on Alexander Crummell is one of my favorite pieces of writing in life. But each chapter opens with music, the sorrow songs, anchoring the work. And this is the genius of it. Anchoring the work in the black spiritual life. Like these songs set the stage for every chapter. Like this is just brilliant. Even when you write a book, to construct this book this way, right, is the rhythm of the sorrow introduces every chapter. But the rhythm of sorrow within these bodies are also the rhythms of power, right? And the rhythms of triumph. So you can't escape the sorrow songs, but those sorrow songs weren't just sorrow songs, because those sorrow songs were actually playing tuneness as well. Because the sorrow songs wasn't just, swing low, swing chariot. It wasn't about Lord, woe is me. Swing low, sweet chariot coming forth to carry me home was about catching that way up north for freedom. These songs were living in this two-ness. So it's brilliant that he uses these sorrow songs, the quote-unquote the Negro spirituals, as an introduction, because these songs live in the two-ness he's speaking about. This is brilliant stuff here, man. And what he's doing is just pure brilliance. So chapter 1, I think I'll just do this of our spiritual strivings, and then I'll pause. I said, we ain't in a hurry. And then in the midst of this brilliance, we're going to have Morehouse men preaching. But okay. That was y'all. That didn't do nothing to y'all. That okay? Fine. It was me. All right. Yeah, brother.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't read the book. This is my first time being at TNT, so I'm really enjoying this.
Good.
But I remember growing up as a young man, and my mother used to always tell me, she said, never let anybody think that they're better than you, because you'll all go to the bathroom the same way.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My father used to say, he was a big man. He used to say, remember this. Whenever you go out, remember that you're a problem. And I said, what do you mean I'm a problem? He said, you'll be a problem because of the color of your skin.
Yeah.
He said, do what you need to do, but remember that you will be a problem because of the color of your skin.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I thought about that, and then when I saw that here, it was like, how does it feel to be a problem?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's really something.
But a problem for the American psyche, and for the American, a problem for the idealism of the American project, because the problem here, E, don't go. Come on, man, right here. The idealism of the American project. You understand what I mean when I say that? That this American project, this country that we celebrate 250 years this year, is deep. Do you know what binds this country is a piece of paper? What binds this country is a piece of paper. And the language of freedom and equality and justice, and all men are created equal and are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the problem is that with that language, what do you do with these black bodies who have not experienced the fulfillment of this beautiful language? So the history of black people in this country is problematic for this country's narrative of itself. This is why, if you never hear something else to read Frederick Douglass's famous speech on the 4th of July. You got to read that. You got to read that. Yes. You know, what's that idea of like the hovering idea of what is the 4th of July to a slave? Right? Like, yeah. Can you imagine being enslaved in this country, celebrating its independence in your face? That's why it's the hypocrisy, the irony, it still goes on today. Because at the end of the day, never forget, remember, everything I try to say is connected. Never forget when we talked about Gladiator 2, what's the dream of the slave? You remember that? What's the dream of the slave? He said was what? To own a slave, right? So and what it really says that the dream of the slave is to have the power of the master, right? Not necessarily freedom. Because what you don't realize is that the master is a slave too. To a certain way of thinking and understanding. So to think about this, to desire to be the oppressor is not freedom. It is trading one form of slavery for another one. So you can't really desire to be, that's what he said, well, we want to see the table turned upside down. No. If you're on the bottom of the table and they folk on the top of the table and you want to turn it upside down, so you're on the top and they're on the bottom, you're not addressing the problem, which is the table. You don't want to be free, you just want to trade places. As though trading places erases the enslavement. No. So it is this is why I'm gonna keep pushing it. This ability to stand comfortable within your own skin and to not feel this deep compulsion that many of us do, and especially our younger people, but all of us in some way, this deep compulsion to be something other than who you are. And to see the beauty of that, the power of that, right? But when you are made to feel as though your quirkiness or your awkwardness is a problem and not just who you are, you'll start trying to be other things and justify it. See, that's why I know, but Paul could never be my Savior. Jesus is. Paul could never be my Savior. Because for a number of reasons, and it's not because of how Paul is used, but it's the way Paul approaches, quote unquote, evangelism, doing the work, building the kingdom. Paul's approach to building the kingdom is an approach that is not steeped in Jesus' work. Because you would not hear Jesus say this: I become all things to all people so that by some means some might be saved. Not all be saved. I become all things to all people so that by some means some might be saved. That's not the words that will come out of Jesus. But that's Paul, because he thinks that at the end of the day, he'll do whatever it takes. Even if it means losing himself for noble reasons, which is building the kingdom. But if you build the kingdom and destroy yourself, what have you done? This is not, because you can't build the kingdom aside from building you. You can't build the kingdom and deconstruct yourself. That is empire language. That's empire rationality. So that is, to me, when you see what the Bois is doing here, it is unpacking. But what I love about it, I'm gonna keep saying it. I see you there. Just hold up. Hold that as far as you can. Is the language he uses to do that. I mean, man, hold on. I'm gonna just wait. Let me just read this because I want to, and from time to time I'll just pull a line. But man, there's so much stuff. On the page, man, let me see. It's in our spiritual strivings. It may be page, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom. The nation has not yet found peace from its sins. The freedman has not yet found in freedom his promised land. Whatever of good may have come in these years of change, the shadow of a deep disappointment rests upon the Negro people. A disappointment all the more bitter because the unattained ideal was unbounded, saved by the simple ignorance of a lowly people. Like, people think the language is, paupers or peasants or lowly people. What he's trying to say is the incredible power, staying power of his people. Those strivings, those spiritual, the strivings to find wholeness. It is this genius of man, look, when people say, I don't want to talk about slavery, I can tell you why I don't want to talk about slavery. Not because of the brutality of it, because when you actually understand the organic genius of enslaved people, the ability, for many reasons, but for one thing, this ability to turn Christianity on its head organically. To constantly being told, like, we don't even know how to do that now. We hear all kind of foolishness from pulpits and these preachers who got us convinced, and we don't even know how to discern. They were able to hear words that dehumanized them, right? Marginalized them, their identity and humanity, and were able to take what they were given and to somehow discern, this don't make sense. And it ain't take everybody to know how to read. It only took maybe one, right? To that one who could read, they can be like, Sharon, how come the preacher from Master don't never read about Exodus? Like, why would you? Folk being liberated from slavery which I'm just going to tell you, I got some issues with this story. After my trip to Egypt, I got some big issues with this story, but I digress. I got some big issues with that story now. Some things you don't get clarity until you touch some things. Because you can live with a narrative your whole life until you see it and touch it and be like, this might not be right. But I digress. All right? So stay with me and hold the question. I ain't forgot. Yeah, I ain't forgot. Just give me 2 seconds. I want to get through this piece. The origin of the veil, we call this childhood awakening, chapter 1a. Du Bois recounts a childhood moment when a white girl refuses his visiting card. This becomes his first realization of racial separation the moment the veil appears. Because he said he didn't really understand difference until it was pointed out in that regard, which is an accomplishment in his day anyway. But he says that moment, it was this stark awareness of his, as he said, all of a sudden, the veil came alive for me in his own experience. When he realized that it wasn't just that he was different, that the difference could become punitive and be weaponized, right? And that's important. It is learning, as you said, my brother, learning the moment you learned you were a problem, right? The moment you learned you were the problem. Okay, pause. 1, 2. 1, 2. You 2. 1, 2. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I feel like we've kind of passed this point.
That's okay.
I wrote a note so I didn't forget. Commenting on the idea of assimilation not being the point of all of this.
Yeah.
Capitalism is the business model for America, so the problem is a necessity, even though it's called out as a problem. Like, the language is almost contradictory. Like, it's a suggestion that it's unwanted, but the truth is it's part of the ecosystem of success for America. So assimilation within this context is actually impossible. The property becoming the partner breaks the system, which is why Du Bois is intentional in pointing out the intention of being both Black and American, because that is a creation of an entirely new thing.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to point out the duality of using the phrase sorrow songs juxtaposed against Negro spirituals, because they suggest two opposing factors, but actually it's language speaking to a different population.
Yeah, sorrow songs, Negro spirituals, out of that, the blues. Yeah, the reason why they call them sorrow songs, and the Negro spirituals is speaking to a different demographic.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's the same thing.
It's the exact same thing, but it's
exact
language
same
that caters to a different audience. And
Yes.
I just wanted to read one other passage from chapter 2, which is talking about the Freedmen's Bureau. The very name of the Bureau stood for the thing in the South which for 2 centuries and better men had refused even to argue, that life amid free Negroes was simply unthinkable, the maddest of experiments. There's more, but we're obviously...
No, that's it. You got ahead, but it's still good. Remember, the institution was never designed to fall or fail. There was no conception by many that this institution would ever end. This is going to be the way of life, right? So when you get, we are going ahead, but I'm going to go there because I like it. When you get these newly freed people, which is in chapter 2 is about this journey of the Freedmen's Bureau, right? On our strive toward dawn of freedom, what it meant. And what he goes through is the hope of it, what the desire was, what we thought the outcome would be versus the reality of it. And he says that some things did happen, but it also exposed some very cruel things. And in that period, you realize what people who once had a particular kind of power have this deep refusal to ever share it. Why? Because and the deep power they have is not the power to impose will, it's the power of freedom. And so now with these newly emancipated, free Black folk, or fugitives for some of them, right? This is when you become a problem. You're not a problem, we know your social standing. You're a slave, you're not a problem, we understand. But you become a problem when there's a belief, or way for their perspective, what is being imposed upon them is a humanity that they refuse to acknowledge. Yeah, the property can't become a partner. The property can't have ownership. In their minds, it's like the cows taking over the farm. Because that's how black people are viewed as animals. So in their mind, when we start letting the chickens run the farm, but that's how it's viewed. You're an animal. You're not human. You're not viewed that way. And those tentacles and those roots are deeply woven into the American psyche as well. Like so it may not be as malignant or weaponized, but when you say it must have been a hardship for your family and yourself to get a first class ticket, it's the same thing. Because you know what the question says? What are you doing sitting here next to me? Why are you saying this is not what I expected? You know? Or and it's not just America though, because what people don't realize, and you think it's racism, it is racism everywhere, because they take their cues from the social narratives of this country. Right? It's like me in Istanbul getting ready to get in the business class line, and the person gonna tell me that the main cabin line's over here. I said, I ain't asked you where it was. I said, I was like, there's no need for you to volunteer that information. I didn't ask you. I know where I'm going. And here's the thing. It wasn't a person from church. It was an Asian man in line who thought I was trying to cut him. Watch this. And he was on the main cabin line. So I walked in, and he was like, you got to go to the back of the line. I said, no, brother, I ain't in your line. And I ain't asked you about where I'm supposed to be. I'm over here. So let me tell you what my ignorant self did. Because I was on the plane first. He had to walk down my aisle. I was like, all right. But people live in these narratives and these assumptions. And these assumptions and narratives travel. And the stereotypes become real. You know, when I was in Spain, I watched a woman at this store, how she engaged me, versus how she engaged an African. I watched it. They could tell. And I was something different, right? I was exotic. This African brother was a problem. See? Because his culture is not being branded all around the world. Mine is. So it becomes popular. Especially when Black American culture dominates the globe in some ways. It's very interesting, you know. Very interesting. And I'm not the one to personally be like, you know, them people, you know, no, because in the words, you know, Brent, you're gonna learn today. Let me help teach you let me debunk these assumptions you're making real quick. You know? And anyway, yeah.
So just the sentence, when did you realize you were the problem? And for me, that was deep because it actually made me think back to the day that I realized that I was a problem.
Pause. I want you to rephrase it before you say it because
Oh,
no. I want you to get the actual thing because it says something there. When you realize how does it feel to be a problem?
How does it feel to be?
Yeah.
So when I thought about it, right? So I realized I was a problem in the first grade, right? So here I am in first grade, and I'm in this Catholic school, and I didn't quite look like the other children there because I was a bit darker, and my hair was coarser, and so I was always at the back of the line, even though the line was in size order, but I was at the back of the line. So then when you thought about it and you're in the class and you're answering the questions, but your hand goes up, but you're not the one who's chosen. Yeah. And I know the answer, and I know more than most of them in here because my mother makes me read for hours every night. Like, my first gift was a book. The first gift I could ever remember was a book. My great-grandmother, she used to give me the Sunday funnies. I was like 2 years old. So I was an avid reader, and education, me being educated was a problem. Now we fast forward, I was 6 years old then. Here it is 40 years later, and my education is still a problem because for some folks, it intimidates them. Because I read and I critically think, I won't buy into anything. Like, you can't just tell me anything, and I won't accept everything that a person is saying for fact, and I don't care whose mouth it came out of. It could have came out the president's mouth, but I'm not going to accept it as fact.
Please don't accept nothing he's saying.
As a matter of fact, this came out this month. I know it's a lie. But, you know, just thinking about as a people, we were always a problem because we were too black, we were too strong, we loved too hard, we loved God, we had a relationship, we had community, and that right there has always been a problem for America. So today, I accept being the problem. Right?
No, stop. Do not. Do not accept that. Because that subtlety in your language shows the deep impact of the trauma. Because how would you accept being a problem? The whole notion of Du Bois is that that burden is not yours to bear. And that problem actually ain't you. So there's no accepting that you're the problem. It's to not accept the absurdity of the assumption. Because the one who problematizes you are the ones with the problem. That's what you understand. So it's not looking back and saying, oh man, I remember when I was a problem. No, there's several ways of saying it. I remember when I realized the insanity of this culture. You see, that's different than saying I remember when I knew I was a problem. No, it's the recognition and the awareness of the absurdity and the insanity that exists in this culture. That you're smart but not acknowledged, right? The order does not apply to you. You go to the back. That's not your burden, right? That's not our burden. And the challenge is that if the minute, and this is why it's so subtle, the minute you feel any compulsion to prove yourself in any context, you've lost already. Now, I ain't just talking about in issues around race. I'm talking about even now, right? Let's get a mic back there. Myself, I forgot she had her hand up for a minute. Because that's important. Because it may not be, because see, oh, yes, let's go back to, what's your name again, sister? Jane. Let me tell you what you just, when you go back to your statement, this idea of capitalism, right? Because it's hard to disconnect capitalism, especially from race in this country, right? It's hard to do that. So this is important, and I meant to jump on it when you said it. It's hard to separate it because capitalism is so woven into the American ethos and gives you the false idea that anybody can make it if you work hard is the lie. That's the American, if you work hard, you can do good. That's the American dream, but it's an illusion in many ways, right? Now hear me. So you don't, if race in America is interwoven with capitalism in America, right? You may actually think that it's two separate conversations, right? That's what she was alluding to. It's not. So you will think that you are someone who takes social justice, or you call it active, whatever, seriously, right? And at the same time, you're consumed while you want to be you're a warrior for social justice. You stand on principles about racism and you stand fighting it. But you also feel that you got to have that $4,000 bag. What you don't understand is how they actually contradict one another. You can't be a racial warrior, but you go shopping, and not just regular shopping. Like you're buying into the myth of capitalism that your worth is based on what you consume and your value is connected to your buying power. And you're doing it to prove what? Well, I could afford that. But can you? Because it's not about whether you got the money for it. It's a different question. It's not about, yes, the ethical cost of it. Right? But we're so disconnected from the ethical cost that the cost don't mean nothing. That's to me what we don't think about. It's woven into it. And what is all this is going to be my thing. If capitalism is woven into the racial construct in this country, what else is woven into it? Capitalism, right? Think about what all things is woven into race conversation that we don't understand. Huh? Sex, no, yes. I'm being very intentional when I talked about what? Remember I said earlier, 3 divides, the racial divide, the class divide, and the digital one. So your consumption, not you, but anybody, with social media is about capitalism. You say, of course, but it ain't like that to people. Because people don't even recognize that. They don't recognize that. People don't get that. They don't get how social media is one of the tentacles and the very, like almost a citadel of capitalism right now. Right, yeah. They're mining your data. They're gaining your information so they can be monetized. And you just think it's harmless. Oh, I'm just scrolling. No. That's why I got you in a chokehold. It is, would you just say that? She said it's actually free labor. Yes. We don't get this. And you have people who are young people who are digital natives, but no one's having these conversations about the impact of it until the negative part of it now starts bursting. Young people with depression, young people with suicidal tendencies, young people always, because it comes by way of this. And we now all of a sudden it's a problem in some places, but in some places it's not a problem. It's not even a conversation. And in one place it's not a conversation, it's in church. How many times you go somewhere and hear them critiquing social media from the pulpit? Because that is a real issue right now. How are you going to talk about social justice, not talk about the negative impact of social media on our young minds and in our communities? The negative impact of digitization and social media has a deeper impact in communities of color. So you get aroused or ready to march in arms when you hear that a police officer shot a young black man, but you are not in arms about the fact that your 10-year-old grandchild live on that phone every day. That don't bother you? And it's designed to keep his attention. It's no different about the marketing campaign for young people to get them to consume cigarettes at a young age, because if I got you at 13, I got you for life. If I can get you at 13, 14 with them cigarettes, I got you. I got a lifelong customer for most. That's what the data says. If you start smoking cigarettes at 14, 13, they got you. You're a consumer for the next 40 years if you make it that long. From the time they got you, they know your value. Right? So now they want to flavor it, and then they want to dress it up and make it colorful and all this stuff. Same thing. They marketing. And let me tell you why things are about to change, right? Because there was a case one in California about someone sued, I forget which social media platform was, about their mental wealth. They got $6 million. That's one of several that's coming up this year, cases. Let me tell you, there's a whole lot of people, because let me tell you something about one thing. We can talk about social media all day, but when somebody learns they can get some money off of that, I'm about to sue. $6 million? Because you proved the negative impact of social media and the consumption of a particular platform, and saying the platform had intentions that were harmful, and one case already won, boom, that's going to take off like lightning in this country. That's what's happening. That $6 million ain't hurting them. Won't hurt a lot of folk because of what has already been consumed, what they've already gained from what you so freely gave, all your data, so freely gave it. And it's like, consuming something that's so good and so sweet, not real. And let me tell you what's bad. It's not good for you. Right? That's what I said to myself last night with that caramel cone ice cream from Haagen-Dazs. I know the minute I looked at the clock and it was after 10 o'clock, and I knew and I told myself, now you ain't got no business going to this fridge to get this ice cream. You ever get up in the middle of the night going to get the ice cream and you can't, your feet hurt because you've been in bed so long, you hurt going to get, but you're going to get that ice cream. You're walking like, good God. But you're going to go there. And then, maybe this is my own personal battle, but then it's the game you play. Can I tell you the game you play? Then we're going to get out here because I got to add some humor to it. Here's the game you play. You got the little pint thing from Haagen-Dazs, right? Vic, it's 10-something. You ain't got no business going to get no caramel cone ice cream that you got in the freezer, right? That's why they don't put the kitchen next to the bedroom. So you ain't know that, right? Because you ain't got no business. Because you ain't got no business, but you go there, and then you think you smart. Let me show you what smart sound like. Can I tell you what smart sound like? You tell yourself, I'm going to go ahead and get this spoon, and I'm just get just one spoonful. And you sit there in the kitchen, and you eat that one spoonful. And then you put the spoon in the sink, and then you go back to the bed, and you sit there, and then you be like, that was real good. Well, I ain't going to get a whole bowl, but let me go back to the kitchen now and get the spoon, and then you rinse it off the first time, but the next 2 times you don't rinse the spoon off. For what? And then you go back and you got another spoonful again. Now, when you do that 4 times, you not only got a problem, but you should have just got the bowl off rip. But you convince yourself. And you know it ain't good. I ain't got no business at 10 something night eating some ice cream. And you keep going back. Nobody get up in the middle of the night with dreams of castor oil. Or olive oil. No, or what's the other one? Cod liver, not olive. Cod liver oil. Olive oil is good. Cod liver oil. You ain't had no dreams of that. It made me drink cod liver oil every morning, a teaspoon before you go to school. Breath be humming. And God forbid you burp. What? But that's the point. If those things, social media, were akin to cod liver oil, you ain't coming after it. But it's that dopamine release. I experienced something. I'm gonna close. I experienced something. This is real talk. I feel ashamed of what I'm about to tell you because I gotta lose weight. And they might think, "Oh, Pastor, no, you tripping? No. Because somebody look at me and be like, "Oh, nah, no, Pastor, you ain't gotta lose no weight. The shirt is black. Figure it out when you get home. Not white." Somebody say, "What does that have to do with it?" Black gives the illusion. Right? But I don't even know what I was about to say, Vic. Because I got caught up in my own laughter. Oh, no, that wasn't it. I was about to talk about losing weight. But let me go ahead what I was saying, it'll come back. The idea is that you know it is not good, but you cannot pull yourself away. You cannot stop doing the very thing you know is problematic. And it's that same rush. This is what I was about to say. Here's my embarrassment. You know the study. So let me just say this. And this is sad. But I know it's happened. So the reason why I experienced this because when I was 10 and had this surgery, they removed the tumor, but they also removed my parotid gland, my salivary gland. So there's an imbalance in my face because this side goes in a little bit more than this side because the glands are still here, they're not on this side. So because I only have one set of like salivary glands right here, parotid glands, I only have them here, not here, it gives me so whereas one, if you have two and certain things happen, you feel it at the same time. When you have one, You don't have one hand. You feel it more acutely. Going somewhere with this. This is so embarrassing, but now I have a fridge full of healthy foods. I got fruit. Most mornings, most mornings, I will tell you about 4 mornings a week, I eat an acai bowl with strawberries and blueberries and bananas, and it's great. I love acai bowl. And it's healthy, right? Acai fruit is healthy. You just got on it. It's good, ain't it? Acai bowls, and you get that strawberry, get a little bit of coconut, maybe a little bit of granola, not too much granola ain't great, but just a little bit, get a little crunch. And so acai, about 4 mornings, 3 to 4 mornings a week, I'm gonna eat acai bowl. If not, then egg whites. I put some peppers, I get some, like an egg white scramble, I get some peppers, orange, red, green pepper, put in there, right? And just a little bit of low skim, like mozzarella, just a little bit. No, that's cool, isn't it? Because I know the calories, right? And then I get, what is it, Dave's Heart. You know, Dave's bread is healthy. Yeah, Dave's Killer Bread, yeah. Killer Bread. And that's good bread, because I got the scan, too. You know the scan on your app, you can see the food is bad. That's good bread, right? So if I do the egg white scramble, I'm going to do I usually get the slice of the Killer Bread. Even if you get the Dave's Killer Bread bagels, I get a half of the bagel, cup of coffee, boom. My food options ain't big. It's going to be the egg whites, for the most part, and acai bowls. Now, if my granddaughter around, she gonna hit me with the pop, I want some waffles. But I'm still not gonna go crazy, because I mix the batter with organic almond milk. You know, I'm doing all the things you're supposed to do. Low sugar syrup, I ain't gonna be on. But this morning, none of that was in my mind. I don't know where this craving came from, because I haven't had this thing in maybe 2 years plus. I don't even know where it came from. It assaulted me. I was offended that it knew what to do to get me. It was in the morning time, and I told myself, man, I ain't got no clothes on. I ain't about to leave the house. Then I walked right in the bedroom, put on my sweatpants, and I got in the car. This is really ridiculous. Mary said, "Oh man," then I went to the drive-thru. So you already know it's bad, because I'm at the drive-thru. No, don't judge me. And I ordered a sausage McMuffin with egg, right? Well, hold on, but it ain't just the sausage McMuffin, because McDonald's, that hash brown. Then I got an extra hash brown. Can't have one. That's disgusting. All right? So, you're laughing at me. So I get home. This when you know this is a problem. I get home, because I like myself to be hot. And the hash brown gotta be what? No, and what? Crunchy, come on. That's why McDonald's hash browns are the truth. They're crunchy. So before I can hold on, before I even get to the food, this is how bad it is. Before I leave, I turn the oven on. So that when I get back from McDonald's, I can just put the hash brown, piece of aluminum foil, put on there. Because I know between my home and the McDonald's, some of the crunchiness done fell off. Am I lying? Y'all know what happened. You can't put it in the microwave because the crunchiness don't hold. So you got to have the oven hot. So when you get home, you put it in the oven, crunchiness restored. All right? You can put the sandwich in the microwave. And let me just keep it going, because if you're going to go down the rabbit hole, keep it going. Because you cannot eat a McDonald's hash brown without what? Ketchup. There you go. So now, so you trying to make it, then you're going to put a little black pepper on it. And I had not had a McDonald's hash brown in 2 years. Till the day. So now, my hash brown has sufficient crunch on it now, restored. My coffee, the espresso, right? The coffee ready. Put the sandwich in the microwave, 13 seconds. I don't know why, random number, but I do 13. Weird numbers, 15, 14, like why? But 13 seconds I put it in because I don't want it too hot, but I want it hot. And Mary, so I got my coffee. Then I put my coffee back in the microwave too because it gotta be hot. So I put that for 22 seconds. Right? So I got the coffee. I'm sitting down. I got the coffee. I got the hash brown. I got the sandwich. And then I get the ketchup and then I put it on the side because if it's crunchy enough, you cut it, you just dip it in the ketchup. Come on, y'all with me, y'all with me. And I'm in church. What happened to me, let me know why I'm not messing with McDonald's no more. All right? When I saw and looked at this hash brown, my one little salivary gland went crazy. It was just hurt, excited. The level of excitement, my salivary gland and my left side of my face started hurting, and then all of a sudden, the water started coming in my mouth. I said, you know what? My body should not be responding to no food like this. It don't do it for the acai bowl. It don't do it for the egg whites. But my God, the hash brown had my parotid gland losing its mind. Like we've been waiting for this for 2 years, brother. You've been playing games with us. I was in physical pain in my cheek at the look at that hash brown. And when I cut it and dipped it in that ketchup, my soul began to rejoice. I was like, what? And then here's a game I played. Because when I got home with the hash brown, you want to hear the game I played? And I'm out of here. I got to make y'all laugh too. Here's the game I played, Vic. Here's the game. And I played myself trying to play this game. Let me back up. I got home, Asia. I got home. I got the sandwich out. I had the microwave already running. This is really funny. Because this is not just my testimony. I'm telling you right now. And I had the hash brown microwave. Before I put the hash brown in the oven and then the espresso machine on, I took the other hash brown and put it in the fridge. No, I'm not touching this until tomorrow. When I finished that McMuffin sandwich and that hash brown, I noticed that the oven was still on. At that point, why waste the heat? And I went and got the other hash brown and said, look, I bought two, I might as well eat two. And when I finished eating that second hash brown, the level of disgust I had for myself and feeling my physical reaction to this hash brown, I was like, I am not going to McDonald's again. But what I'm going to do is go to the supermarket and buy my own hash brown. And use my air fryer. Now I ain't doing that. I'm telling you. But to have that, but watch this. My point is that there was a release of dopamine in my system at the sight of that hash brown, that ketchup sitting next to each other. Right, huh? Yeah. And or like when you ever not be hungry until you smell something in the air? You're like, wait a minute, Laverne's in I had some leftover Cuban food for dinner that I ate before 7. I'm not eating anything tonight. I'm saying that because I need to publicly put this in the universe so the universe can hold me accountable when I get home. Because I'll be really strong until I get home. Because you do. When you get home, you be like, I'm not eating. It's, oh, God, it's 9:30. I'm not eating. And then you be, if I had some good snacks, you be saying all this stuff. Because at 9:30, water don't really hit it the way, you want to drink water, but I think I got something about that, and I'm done for real. But I think it's something about my childhood, because, when you was a kid, your mother would get some water and go to sleep. I'm offended by water sometimes because I want something to eat. Drink some water and go to sleep. Because water fills you, and you be like, I'm not drinking no more water and going to sleep. I want to eat some, I went to the store. This has not been a good month for me in terms of eating. I'm going to tell you, it's not been a good month. And I had no business going down the candy aisle. Because I do not go down the candy aisle, because when I go down the candy aisle, it is impossible for me to make it to the other end without something in my hand. And it's chocolate. This store I go to has never had this chocolate, I'm about to tell you. On this day, as I walk down this aisle, the one thing I thought I would never see, because you ever play that with yourself? Let me go see if they have it, because I know they don't got it, because I don't need it, but let me just walk down this aisle and see. The one thing I never saw in this store, Harold, for the years I've been going there on the candy aisle, because I like chocolate, but I could walk past it. But I walked, and I was walking like this, and you were like, wait a minute, did I just see that? I was like, wait a minute. No. And then you go through the game again. When you do this move right here, you're in trouble. You go. When the hands hit the pockets, you trying to decide, you done lost. You're like, oh. They had, and I've never seen this in a store, in this particular store, in a bag. They had the milk chocolate peanut chews. Peanut chews? The milk chocolate street. I know where they at. They across the street. That's why I don't go there. They're at the front desk. That's the enemy working right there. That's when the enemy comes into the house of God. That's it. That's a demon, whoever did that. That's the devil. You're a workman of the devil if you brought them in here. Vic, you know what? I ain't going to say nothing. You got some nerve. You going to come in here slim and trim with a bag of chocolate to my hair. You is something else, man. I'm done, y'all, because y'all pray for me tonight. Huh? Nah, man. Well, I will say the credit I give myself is it took me 2 weeks to get through the bag. Yeah, if that's any kind of credit. I mean, the bag was gone. Let me run to my point. So I'm trying to get back on track, man, but this has been tough. And I'm a foodie too, right? So food is, but anyway, that's my dopamine. I fight that battle every day. But it's so good to be surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses of fellow sufferers. Yes. You got to make light of this. She asked a question, though? Yeah, if you still got it, I'm going to leave on your last question. I ain't forgot you. Yeah, man, that's what it's got to be. It's got to be that. See, I'm of the opinion that we learn, but we laugh too. You got to make this enjoyment. You got to enjoy. Yes, ma'am.
So my question.
Oh, gosh, I know what time. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We talked about the veil, and when did we realize that the people view us as a problem? I wanted to give credit to the sisters that spoke earlier about their advanced degrees and all of the things. And what I challenge myself to do is when I introduce myself, especially at work, in environments where I am not most often the other, I lean on where I'm from. So they're like, oh, well, tell me about yourself. I say, I'm a girl from the South Bronx. Because I know that traditionally comes with a lot of negative connotations. And this idea about being palatable and the cost we pay to assimilate. I've noticed that there are some taxes that I pay with making that choice about leaning into authenticity.
the question becomes like, what is most valuable?
Yeah.
And like, I can lean on the advanced degrees, but I choose not to because I want every assumption to be made is like, hey, I'm from the South Bronx. So whatever misconception about my education, my upbringing, my exposure, my whatever, like, let's start with that first.
Watch this. Watch this. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. That is how easily Satan infiltrates your house with a smile. I ain't touching none of those. That's you dirty right there. See that? Y'all see that? See how he trying? While we having a serious conversation, the enemy walks up with chocolate. You take him off my hand, right? Yeah. Anybody who feels like you want to be a blessing to me and come get these after service, please do that. I won't be mad at you. Just leave one. Go ahead.
No, so yeah, I recognize that there's a price because like there's a benefit to boasting and there's a benefit to making yourself more palatable.
Yeah.
And I'm not even perfect. Look, tomorrow I'm getting my hair straightened immediately.
Okay.
But so there's a balance to that. But again, there's this like my authenticity is to never forget where I come from, no matter what spaces I enter. But there's a weight to that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So my question is like, how do you assess the cost?
I don't think there's a mechanism to assess the cost. There's a decision to suffer the cost. Once you make that decision and believe that your authenticity in that regard is more valuable, that's the decision you made. And it's an internal decision you made because that's important, you know. There are many things I don't do. I don't walk around here, talking about degrees and all that, and not because I don't feel a need to do that, right? Because intelligence is deeper than that. Intelligence is deeper than your ability to do the busy work necessary to get a degree. It's deeper than that. And so that is not impressive. It's never been impressive to me. I mean, I'm a Morehouse man, but that's not just by intellect. That's just, But and that frames me more than anything I've done in terms of education. But we often feel this need to assert ourselves in particular ways, in particular spaces, so that we somehow justify our being in those spaces or being in those. And it's tough. It's tough. There were many times when I was an administrator at Duke and working at Duke where I had to check a whole lot of folk for some of the assumptions they made and the things that people would say cavalierly that they didn't understand the deep-seated, the racist origin of certain questions. And they actually think they're making a regular question, but there's a racist origin to some of that stuff. They don't always sense that. And I don't mind, I'm not going to explain to you my blackness, but I will correct your ignorance. And that becomes important to do. See, when you say I love my fellow human being, yeah, I love you too much to allow you to continue to move in an ignorance. And so out of love, I feel it's necessary to educate you so that you don't make this assumption again, because I love you too much for you to watch you repeatedly make a fool of yourself. So let me help you understand how incredibly ignorant you are. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm also familiar with the language of incomprehensibility, that maybe I'm speaking on a level that's too much. I'm not going to lower it. I'm going to acknowledge your necessity to raise the level of your intellectual ability when you have certain conversations. And I love doing that because you got to remind some folks sometime. But anyway. All right, y'all. We done had a good time tonight. And we here too late, and now it's something else. All right? We're going to keep reading this. We're going to move at a pace that's necessary because, as you can see, this book gives rise to a lot of feelings. And that's what that's why this book is still so timeless, still being studied, still being read today in schools, because such a masterful writing, and it is truly a masterpiece. And we'll continue. And now, if you don't have it, please read through like at least the 5th chapter But it is just magnificent. The transparency of Du Bois talking about the loss of his son in this is beautiful writing. It is, you can feel it. And when he talks about, my favorite is Alexander Crummell. It's just his critique of Booker T is salient. I mean, this man. I'll give you this last image of W.E.B. Du Bois when the riots. I think it was 1919 in Atlanta riots. Yeah, 1919, and there was word that the Klan was going to make its way to the black schools and was going to kill and set on fire, like the Morehouse and stuff like that, Spelman, all the schools. At that time, John Hope was the first black president of Morehouse College who could pass, honestly. If you looked at John Hope, not John Hope Franklin, the historian, but who he was named for, John Hope was the first black president of Morehouse, educated at Brown University. But definitely, if you look him up, John Hope, first black president of Morehouse, you're going to be like, where the black man at? Because he don't look it. But when they heard that the Klan was coming to the campus, and at that time, he was the only person to be president of two schools at one time. Because at one time, he was president of Clark College, which was Clark College, Atlanta University. It was actually Atlanta University he was president of, and Morehouse at the same time. And so Du Bois at this point is teaching at Atlanta University. And they hear about these night patrols looking for coming to kill students. And there's this story, not it's real, it was a thing story. A historian who wrote about it. At the back gate, if you've ever been to Clark Atlanta Morehouse, there's a back gate that's right at Clark Atlanta and right in the back of Morehouse they share. And that when they had professors, faculty stationed around the schools with guns, holsters, and shotguns. There's this image of John Hope and W.E.B. Du Bois with the guns and the shotguns waiting for the Klan. Like, we don't hear that image of Du Bois. But by all means, he was going to protect his children, those people there. And you protect them with a gun, you protect them with that book. You empower them the same way. So anyway, come on, let's stand. Let's get ready to go. Listen, y'all come up here, because it would be selfish of me to keep these to myself, right? So y'all come up here and please take these. Come take them. And then on the way out, as you leave, look at Victor and be like, shame on you. Shame. You see how easy the enemy moves. What he saying? In the Senate, it be your own peoples. All right, let's go to God. God, thank you for this night, oh God, this time of knowledge gained, of experiences had, of laughter shared on tonight, oh God. Continue to strengthen us and grow us and keep us and bind us in your spirit and in your love as we seek. Be faithful to you. Thank you, oh God, for leading us this way, that we can grow in knowledge and wisdom, but most of all, in the love that you give us. We love you, Lord. It's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Y'all have a good night tonight. Enjoy.